It is December, which means the 2025 offseason is right around the corner, and that means more mock drafts. My name is Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and today Ryan is doing his second mock draft of the 2025 offseason so far, and we're going to get right into that here in a second. But before we get into that, we're trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you think of this mock draft. We are going to have a mock draft coming out every single week between now and the 2025 NFL drafts at the end of April. So be sure to hit that subscribe button if you like mock draft content. Ryan, I'll send it over to you. Let's get this bad boy rolling.
Let's do it. Let's pull up the mock draft simulator here. So before we get started, I just want to preface this mock draft by saying this is recorded before the Monday Night Football game is concluded. So this is an older format. However, the philosophy, I think, for each team will be the same. And either team in the Monday night game can't really move all that much to start with.
Yeah. The Browns are playing right now. I mean, they, depending on tiebreakers, might move up one or two spots or whatnot. If they lose or if they win. It's kind of the same thing with the Broncos. They're going to be pretty much stuck in that 20th spot right there. But I agree with you where the concepts of it, especially too with this draft, is going to be interesting. Because it's not blue chip, a bunch of blue chip prospects like there was last year.
No, I agree with that. So starting off here, there is one really big blue chip prospect at the top, and I feel like this is just control C on every single mock draft that you watch. Travis Hunter is an elite talent. He's just a fantastic football player, and whether he's a full-time corner, full-time wide receiver, or he's kind of doing a little bit of both, I think he's the most electrifying player in this class. And just the name value alone of him being on your team, if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think puts a lot of butts in seats. It sells a lot of tickets. And on top of that, he's just a fantastic player. So I'm going to go with Travis Hunter here. I know some Jags fans had a problem with that in the last mock, but right now I just don't really see it any other way. Travis Hunter is going here, number 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Next up, Las Vegas Raiders. They have actually a decent bit of talent. I think you go look, this offensive line has been okay. This defense, while hasn't been the most opportunistic this season and had a lot of turnovers, they're still a pretty good points allowed, yards allowed defense. And this receiving room, not great, but not awful. Brock Bowers, I think, is by far their best pass catcher. And so I think they can kind of set up a wide receiver by committee because they still have that elite pass catcher. So here, I think you're ready to go and invest in a quarterback. And for me, that's Cam Ward. Cam Ward is far and away the best quarterback prospect in this class, in my eyes. And I just really like what he brings to the table. The dude is raw. Don't get me wrong. He just has this innate ability to be calm under pressure, calm in the pocket. And the one thing that I do actually like about his game is, especially compared to the first quarterback taken off the board last year in Caleb Williams, he actually does play a little bit more in structure and kind of goes through his progressions a little bit more naturally. Part of that is this is his first or second time ever having a quarterbacks coach. I think he had one at Washington State. He has one now at Miami, obviously. And I think he's working on that specifically because obviously the background football stuff he already has. He's I don't want to say an elite playmaker out of the pocket because he's not maybe as good at that as Caleb Williams or some of those level prospects that we've seen, but he's very good out of the pocket. He's very good out of structure. He just is still fine tuning the in structure part of his game. And I think he's going to be a franchise quarterback for the Raiders if they give him the time to come in and develop. They have Gardner Minshew there. They have Aiden O'Connell there. Both of those guys are under contract for next season. So I think Cam Ward can come in and not be rushed into a bad spot. So going with Cam Ward here at number 2, this to me is where the draft gets interesting because I feel like right now everybody has the Giants going with Shedeur Sanders. And yes, that's a very plausible pick. I could definitely see them going that way. I'm not going to go this way in this draft. For 2 reasons. One, what I just said, I feel like everybody's going that way. But 2, I feel like there's going to be a big regime change in New York. I don't necessarily feel like they're going to be looking to invest in a franchise quarterback right away. It's a slow build. You don't have to go out and get your quarterback right away. You can start by collecting good pieces. I think this defense specifically maybe need some help in the secondary, but this is a decent secondary class. I think you can go get one of those guys in the second round. I think offensive line is not nearly as good in this class as it was last year. But if you're looking for interior guys, which I feel like the Giants are, because Jermaine Illuminor has provided solid play this year. Not Andrew Booth. Andrew Thomas has been solid when healthy on the left side. So they have like talent at tackles at the very least. They just need to solidify that interior of that offensive line. So you can go get a Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, Armaj Reed Adams, like some of those guys later in this draft. But to me, there's a pretty steep drop off in this wide receiver room. And yes, I know you drafted Malik Neighbors in the top 6 last year, but Tet McMillan is a perfect complement, I think, to a Malik Neighbors. So you could come in with, go out and get a Justin Fields, a Sam Darnold in free agency. You have a Malik Neighbors, you have a Tet McMillan. Hopefully this offensive line is on the come up. You have a good rookie running back in Tyrone Tracy. This defense is promising. So I think if you go that veteran quarterback route, you could potentially run into a Geno Smith type situation in Seattle because you have the good defense. You have a up and coming offensive line. I think a route that the Giants could go this offseason is to invest in an offensive playmaker in Tet McMillan and just totally kind of forego this quarterback class and just be like, we're going to try to build the best team we can. And then if we have to spend extra assets next year to go and get an Arch Manning or Nico Yamayeva, whatever his last name is, from Tennessee, like that, I think is a problem for 2026. Right now, we just need to field the best football team that we can, and we feel that this team is better with Justin Fields and Tet McMillan than it is with Shedeur Sanders. And so I'm curious to see Giants fans' thoughts on that. This is an alternative scenario where I go different than a quarterback. So it is interesting, I think, to kind of contemplate if it's worth paying a Justin Fields or a Sam Darnold over drafting a Shedeur. So here, moving on now to New England. This is where I'm going to have the first trade. Cincinnati Bengals. I think they could. There's only a few blue chip prospects in this class. And one of them is Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. He is a phenomenal, like 3-down interior defensive lineman. This defensive front has been atrocious. Outside of Trey Hendrickson, they have really, really struggled. It's a really deep edge class. But I think they have Chris Jenkins from Michigan, second-round pick last year, that has played well in stints. I know he got banged up this past week, but I think you can get up into the top 10 top 5 relatively cheap this year. So it's just going to be a 10, 42, and then a round 4 pick in 2026. And you get that 4th overall pick just to get up. Just because, again, this isn't a very strong class. They're not really going to be, I think, competing for anybody. I think they just want to get ahead of Carolina and New York and go get that blue chip defensive interior guy here. So we're going to make this trade, draft Mason Graham, and I think that vastly improves this Bengals defensive line right away. And they still have their 3rd rounder. They can go and get an edge rusher that falls there. Mike Green will probably be off the board by then, but he's a really good one. There's a ton of edge guys in this class that are just going to be it's going to be a plethora of riches at that position. So speaking of guys that are going to go pretty early on in that edge class, Abdul Carter he's not the most refined edge rusher in this class, but I think you watch him on tape and his explosiveness just jumps off at you. The way he can beat corners around beat tackles around the edge and kind of just really be a threat to either run around you, run through you, have an inside move. This is his first year playing edge rusher, and you can tell at times that he just doesn't quite have that refinement. But you also see just the elite athleticism at, I believe, 6'5", 260 pounds, that he could be a true superstar at the next level. So we go with Abdul Carter here. The New York Jets, it's a tough spot because I feel like the Giants, they are going to be going through a regime change as well. They've already fired. Well, I don't feel like they're going through a regime change currently. They fired their GM. They fired their head coach. Jeff Ulbrich is definitely not going to be there after this season. So it'll be really interesting to see what they go with. And for me, I just have to go with the top player left on the board, and that's going to be Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan. Had a little bit of a down year, struggled with injuries, hasn't been on the field all that much, but you go watch him in 2023, fantastic player, really sticky in man coverage. You now have far and away the best corner duo in football. And it's not even really close with Will Johnson and Sauce Gardner. Also, Sauce Gardner's contract is coming up. So if this is like a full-on Jets rebuild and they want to go out and maybe trade some pieces to get more assets, you could probably get multiple top 50 picks for a Sauce Gardner, like a first and a second in another year, if not even more. And I think this gives you more flexibility as a new regime to go and potentially try to acquire more different young talent. Not that I'm saying that I would do that, get rid of Sauce Gardner, because finding a all-pro caliber corner is not easy, but it just gives you a lot of flexibility in that room. Also, what is it? Reed is a free agent this year, so you're going to need a corner too.
DJ Reed, yeah.
DJ Reed. I can't want to say Jerron Reed, but that's not right. DJ Reed is a free agent, and so he will most likely be gone. And so, again, just another reason to add Will Johnson here. And so this is where I have my second trade of the draft. So there are a few teams that I feel are going to want to invest in Ashton Jeanty. I feel like the Cleveland Browns are one of them, but another really popular fit in this draft for obvious reasons is just the Dallas Cowboys. And I feel like Jerry Jones looks at a guy like Ashton Jeanty and just absolutely starts salivating over him in the backfield. So I'm going to go move the Dallas Cowboys up here. So pick 13 and 45 for pick 7 and 143 equals out on the Draft Tech trade chart. So we're just going to go ahead, force that trade. And this is where I have Ashton Jeanty coming off the board. I really like that fit. It's one of those, like, if the shoe fits type of things. Like, it's just a really nice match. They do have to give up a little bit more, I think, than they would like. However, going and getting one of the last blue chip prospects left in this class, and one of the best running back prospects that we've seen, like, he's in that Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley tier of prospect. Ezekiel Elliott is another one that I think was in that tier that he drafted over, I think, about 10 or over 10 years ago. So I just like that fit. Next up, Cleveland Browns. This is where I'm going to go with my best offensive lineman on the board, and I use the word offensive lineman purposefully. Kelvin Banks Jr. is just so impressive with his strength and ability to be impactful in the run game, but then also still do really well in pass sets. My biggest thing, I don't know if he's big enough to play tackle. I don't think that matters enough, like, for the Browns. They still have Nick Chubb. I think they want to be physical and strong in the run game. So I think they go and get just kind of a big, powerful offensive lineman here in Kelvin Banks. He's only 6'4". I have some questions about his arm length, so I don't know if he'll survive outside, but if not, he's a Pro Bowl guard at the next level. And I think in this class, you're willing to take that risk just because I don't feel like you're really missing out on much. So we're going to go Kelvin Banks here for the Browns. Here at number 9, one of my favorite players in this class, Nic Scourton, former Purdue guy, came over to Texas A&M. He's only 20 years old, but he just moves so well for a guy that's 6'4". I think he's almost 280 pounds. Just so powerful, and you can see his impact on tackles when he makes impact. But then he sets up his spin move so well, and that's kind of his signature, is that spin move back to the inside. So he sets up tackles to kind of have a wide set, hits the hands, and then spins in and gets the sack. He did it to Will Campbell, whose name will be mentioned here in a couple picks. I really like him. I think he would be a good fit there. And Cam Jordan, you kind of really started to see his play fall off. I think Nic Scourton would be the next Saints edge rusher to kind of take over there. And next up, my New England Patriots, they traded back. To me, I think that's the best scenario here, is the Patriots can trade out of a top 5 pick, acquire some capital, and then go and potentially draft a franchise tackle here. And everyone is talking about Will Campbell. I struggle with Will Campbell because, yes, he's a great athlete. He has the height and weight to be a franchise left tackle. And I don't even think he has like T-Rex arms like some people like say. I just think he clearly has less than 33-inch arms, and there are 0 tackles in this class, or 0 tackles in the NFL with less than 33-inch arms. And that is just a hard place to be. I go back to Peter Skoronski, one of the best offensive line prospects, like most technically sound guys. He played left tackle at Northwestern, went to Tennessee, and was almost immediately kicked into guard just because it was so hard for him with, I think, his 32.25-inch arms to play out on the outside that edge rushers would just dominate him. And so he kicked into guard. I feel like Will Campbell will be the same thing. And so I'm going to go with my next tackle, who I don't have that like graded that much lower, and that's going to be Ariante Ursary, the tackle from Minnesota. Just an absolute freak, very athletic for his size. He clearly has the length. He might have 35 or 36-inch arms. And I think, especially you look at Elliott Wolf and like his family's drafting history, they go for the freaks. They go for the guys that meet all the measurements. And so I think Ariante Ursary, New England Patriot. Don't worry, Will Campbell, you're going here to the Chicago Bears. I think the Chicago Bears are able to take that risk of Will Campbell potentially kicking into guard. So if he comes in, he can't hang on the outside. He's still a really solid guard. And I think that's just a really good fit for him. I know that they need a left tackle, but I just think that he has that flexibility where he is just a really good offensive lineman. And if you don't need specifically a tackle like the Patriots, I think he's a fantastic pick. So Will Campbell goes there to the Chicago Bears. Next up, Miami Dolphins. We're going to go with Malachi Starks. So Javon Holland is a free agent. He could leave. He could stay. But if he stays, then I still like this pick because you now have the best safety duo in the NFL. This defensive front is playing really well. And I mean, it can't hurt to have an extra safety. You could go with an offensive lineman. However, at this point, well, I don't want to say at this point because my next pick might be an offensive lineman, but I think Malachi Starks is the best player available. It fills a need for this team. And if Javon Holland does leave, he can step right in and fill that role. If he stays, you have the best safety duo in the NFL. So I'm going to go Malachi Starks here. This is where Tennessee, they traded back. I think this is kind of a perfect situation for them. So one of my favorite guys in this offensive line class is also Wyatt Milam. He is just such a sound blocker. He does remind me a little bit of Peter Skoronski, maybe not quite the best athlete, but just so technically sound. He's played all over at a high level. He's played right tackle. He's played guard. He's played left tackle at a high level. He's only allowed one pressure, I believe. Okay, no. So no sacks, no quarterback hits. And so he's just a really sound offensive lineman. He's another guy in that Will Campbell category, though, where he is possibly going to have to kick into the interior. I know they drafted not Jalen Duncan. That's their current right tackle. I did this yesterday. No, Peter Skoronski, and then J.C. Latham. J.C. Latham, the left tackle out of Alabama last year. I think Wyatt Milam can slot in at one of those right tackle or right guard spots pretty seamlessly. And then you have Tony Pollard, who's had the most yards after contact this year in your backfield. He now is not getting touched on most running plays until he's a yard or two down the field at worst. I think that would be a fantastic offensive line for Brian Callahan and the Tennessee Titans, not to mention the protection that Will Levis will get if they continue to invest there. So here is where probably the biggest trade, well, this is definitely the biggest trade of this mock draft. So 49ers, I was kind of going through, racking my brain, and I could see them going Benjamin Morrison, except Benjamin Morrison or Cameron Williams in this situation. Except I think both of those guys are going back to school. I am not including them in this mock draft. They're very talented guys, but Benjamin Morrison hurt his hip early on in the year, and he totally missed this year of play. And then also Cameron Williams is very young, very raw. I think it would be best for him to go back to school and get another year. He would probably kick over to left tackle because Kelvin Banks is leaving. And I think that would up his draft stock in 2026 tenfold. I think he would be a top 5 pick easily if he goes back to school next year. So I'm not including them here. So with all of that, I'm going to do a trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers here. So I believe it is pick 26. 58 and 127 for 14 and then pick 150. And so that equals out on the trade chart. And this is where I have Shedeur Sanders coming off the board. I think he would be a good fit in that offense. But mainly, one of the reasons why I wasn't so high on him is I feel like that Sanders family, there's a little bit of like LaMelo Ball and the Ball family antics there that it just kind of feels like that. And I feel like a lot of NFL teams are going to shy away from that. And I do feel like Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers would be a fantastic landing spot for him because Mike Tomlin has been dealing with characters and situations like that his entire year or his entire career. And I think Shedeur Sanders would be a good fit. Also, so like outside of the Giants, the only team that I really think would be going after a quarter, well, I guess there's two, would be the Jets or the Browns. But both of them, I just don't necessarily love the landing spot of taking a quarterback when they have so many other holes. Also with the Jets, it's going to be interesting to see what head coach and GM go there. So before I predict a QB to be drafted there, I want to see what that front office looks like. Other than that, I'm usually just going to go best player available. And the Browns are in a tough situation with Deshaun Watson. I think Jameis Winston, I know he already threw a pick in the Monday night game tonight, but it's not a horrible situation for them to maybe try to just let it ride one more year and then see where they end up in a much better quarterback class. So Shedeur Sanders there. You are a Pittsburgh Steeler. Next up are the Indianapolis Colts. And another guy that I really like in this class is the linebacker, Jalen Walker. Just a very versatile guy. He comes down and can play as like an outside linebacker, edge rusher on some downs. He can play middle linebacker and just do a really good job in coverage in early downs as well. So I really like him. I think he'd be a good fit. This Colts team needs beef up front to help stop the run. He's not necessarily that kind of linebacker, but he will help in the run game. So I like that fit. They could also go Colston Loveland or maybe go Tyler Warren and get a tight end there. But I like that fit there of Jalen Walker. And then the last pick before I take a quick break here and let Tyler kind of react, I'm going to go with James Pierce Jr. Yaya Diaby is having a good year and a good young career down in Tampa Bay. I think if you get a James Pierce Jr. as kind of like a speed edge rusher, give him a running mate. You have Vita Vea in the middle as like that meaty nose tackle that's just really hard to run against. I think that would be a really good fit for him. And if he goes to Tampa Bay, he would be one of my favorites for Defensive Rookie of the Year, just because I feel like he could get double-digit sacks in that situation. Like he would just be so effective in a outside linebacker, like kind of wide nine setup where he just can use all his strengths and really not have to deal with some of his weaknesses out on that edge. So go with James Pierce Jr. here for the Buccaneers. And Tyler, I want to throw it over to you. What have you thought of this mock draft so far?
Been very unique. I think once again, kind of reiterate how crazy this draft could be. If you scroll up a little bit, I'll kind of walk through the picks a little bit. Like Travis Hunter to Jacksonville, it just makes too much sense. It's a really kind of until we see more testing or get kind of a better idea. Also, too, another potential regime change. But you go look at Jacksonville, it kind of is a nice little like destination spot for a head coach because you have your franchise quarterback, you have some stud receivers, you'll have the first overall pick, and clear weaknesses that you need to improve on. But I think if a better coach come in there, who knows what can happen. Las Vegas, I can see them going to quarterback, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I see why you went with Cam Ward. I like your theory with Ted McMillan going to the Giants, and I also think too there are a lot of holes on that team that they need to fix. That being said, though, I think in this situation with Shedeur being there, I'm higher up on Shedeur than you are.
Yeah,
I don't entirely agree with the LaMelo Ball type comparison. I think that's different. I think you look at what Deion's done with the HBCUs and then also kind of what he's done in Colorado. Is there a confidence level or a level of arrogance? I absolutely agree, but I think it's a little bit different than with that.
It's not necessarily like the LaMelo Ball in like the Ball family situation. It was definitely way worse because LeVar was like just this out like extremely boisterous character for no reason. Dion is a Division I college football coach and whatnot. I was more referencing like the meddling in football, like football activities, like what happens if Shedeur goes to a team where maybe the coach makes a lot of coaching blunders, or maybe doesn't have the best offensive coordinator. That to me is where Dion could start to intervene, and I mean, maybe he won't and whatnot. I just think teams are going to be more cautious of that than a Cam Ward situation where it's like his family is clearly not involved in any football.
Maybe we're talking about a lot of the off the field stuff. I think just kind of solidifying. I think my point is Shedeur Sanders is a lot better quarterback than a lot of the ball children are at basketball.
Oh, I would 100% agree.
There's the kid who's, I don't really follow the NBA too much, but like Lonzo Ball, his career didn't pan out. The second kid, obviously, I don't even think he played in the NBA. And then now there's LaMelo. Is that it?
Yeah.
So I don't really follow the NBA too much, but it's like I think he might be the best one, but I mean,
he's still not even.
Yeah, Shedeur Sanders does have the ceiling to be
and that is also a fundamental disagreement. I think he could maybe be a top 10 QB, but he has an okay NFL arm. He's a pretty good athlete, and he does read the field well. But I feel like at times he hunts for the big play. I feel like he's pushing the ball into double, triple coverage. And if you have Travis Hunter, I kind of get it. But still, I would like to see more going through progressions. Getting the ball out of his hands quicker. He was one of the most sacked quarterbacks in college football, and his offensive line wasn't great. Some of those sacks are on him too.
Oh, some are, yes, but it's also too. I think that Colorado team isn't. I think they've done a lot with their superpowers, their superstars that they have.
Yeah, I agree.
And they've improved on the season. But back to the Giants pick, though, I think that Ted McMillan is an interesting pick in theory. And something maybe that they consider. Let's say they're picking fourth, and then the Jets are picking third, or the Browns are picking third, and Shedeur Sanders is sitting there. I could see them taking Shedeur Sanders, and then with Cam Ward and Ted McMillan being off the board. And with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders being off the board, then I could see them going with Ted McMillan. I don't believe they'll go with Jalen Milroe or Quinn Ewers or Carson Beck at number 4 overall. And another advantage to this, though, take Ted McMillan at 4, and then take one of those guys in your second round pick, or maybe trade back up into the first round in the late first round pick. I think you get a lot more value going with Ted McMillan in that situation. In this scenario, though, if it pans out this way, I think the Giants would probably go quarterback. But to your point, though, everybody that's doing mock drafts right now is picking the Giants pick a quarterback. So props to you for showing your intelligence out for the whole world to see. And so I like the Mason Graham trade. Cincinnati Bengals, great team, but horrible defense. So I guess I don't know if that makes them a great team or not, but they need help on the defense.
Great offense.
Yeah, that's true. Elite offense. Jets kind of going back. I think if Shedeur Sanders falls to them, I think they take it. I think a new regime takes him there. But once again, I took Will Johnson. No, I didn't take Will Johnson on my last mock draft. But I could see that situation playing out absolutely if both of those top 2 quarterbacks are off the board. Ashton Jeanty just makes sense. I like the Browns' offensive line. I feel like the Browns can go really in any direction. And really good picks, I think, all around. I like some of the trades. I think that they make sense. I think the Titans might go Luther Burden actually instead of a tackle there, because they've invested a tackle in the past couple of years. So I think Luther Burden on that offense would be very interesting. Just give another weapon to Will Levis. Offensive line has been playing a little bit better. Nick Westbrook-Akine, he's going to be a free agent, but he's actually made a solid connection with Will Levis. So still have Calvin Ridley. You have some free agency money. I think as of last time I checked, which was Halloween, they're going to have $80 million in cap space. So maybe they could go get a free agency receiver. But all the other picks, though, I think make sense. Pittsburgh, if Shedeur Sanders is there, I could see them trading up, where maybe let Justin Fields go, have Russell Wilson come back for another year or two, let Shedeur Sanders develop, and then that's just a great organization for him to be in.
Yeah, and I also think he does need. I'm lower on Shedeur Sanders than I feel like the consensus. I feel like he needs to go somewhere and develop, and because he still has some bad habits. He still hangs on the football too long, throws it in all the coverage, stuff I've already said. I just I think that would be a good fit for him. I highly doubt that he is going to go at 14. This was just a scenario where I think he falls. I also,
It was unique. No,
it wanted to do something different than what everybody sees all the time. So,
oh yeah, no, it was unique. It's something to think about and ponder, and that's what's going to be fun about this offseason. It's going to be fun about this channel. So if you're still with us, like and subscribe, and so you can see some more crazy trades that Ryan and I do.
Yeah. So getting back into it here, the Rams. So another thing too, just to touch on the Shedeur Sanders thing, I think the next teams up that are going to be interested in a quarterback would be the Rams and the Seahawks. All the other teams in that range, I think, have their guy for at least for the next few years. And I think the Rams and the Seahawks would be a potential landing spot. So that's another reason why I feel like the 49ers could trade out of 14 and go let an AFC team not in the realm go take Shedeur Sanders. So with the Rams here, Alaric Jackson is a free agent. Josh Simmons is a really nice left tackle prospect. He was having a really, really good year until he hurt his knee against Oregon and had to miss the remainder of the season. So hopefully it's nothing too severe structurally. He's able to test at the combine and have an offseason draft process. But I right now, from what I've seen, I think he's a good option here to take at 17. Here at number 18, the Arizona Cardinals. The interior of this defense, I think, could use some help. I think they have a decent defensive line, but I think Jonathan Gannon is going to want to be better when stopping the run. So I'm going to go with the other Michigan defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant. I think he's just a really athletic, I don't say nose tackle because he can kind of play in that A gap and like a 4-down lineman, but a really athletic nose tackle that I think could be impactful in a team's running game. I think this would help the Cardinals out a lot. They're really good running the football. They need to get really good defending the run because I think if they can do that and make teams one-dimensional, that really will help this back end of this defense there. So here with your Atlanta Falcons at number 19, I know they just got 5 sacks against the Chargers, and they finally put together a decent rush plan. It was coming out of a bye. I don't necessarily know if they're going to be able to replicate it. So I'm going to go and get you guys probably just, I don't know why I like this guy so much. One of my favorite edge rushers in this class, and that is going to be Donovan Ezeraku, the edge rusher from Boston College. So one of the things that I really liked about him was just he came up as a edge setting run defender that developed pass rush moves in midway through last year, and then now has just started to dominate tackles at the college level. I believe in their last game, he had 2 sacks, 5 pressures, 2 passes deflected, 4 run stuffs, like just a complete edge defender. He started to really put together not just pass rush moves, but like sequence pass rush moves as he sets up tackles between downs. And it's really fun to watch. I think he could be really good at the next level. He's just at Boston College, and I don't feel like a lot of guys are really talking about him all that much. And I really like him here at 19. So
well, I will say too, last time we drafted a guy from Boston College in the first round, it panned out pretty well.
Yeah, so. Matt Ryan. So I like the fit. I think with what Raheem Morris is trying to do down there, 3 down linemen, get some outside linebackers in there. Matt Judon, I don't know if he's going to be back or not. He is a free agent after this year, so we'll see. But all in all, I think you guys, unless something drastically changes in the last 5 weeks of the year, you guys are locked in at edge rusher for me.
Well, and on top of that too, outside of Arnold Ebiketie, who's young, but a lot of our defensive tackles, you have Matt Judon, a lot of those guys, they're just older. And Braylon Trice, our 3rd-round pick last year, who's a rookie, he tore his ACL in the preseason. Haven't really seen too much Brandon Dorless. I actually don't think I've seen him at all. Rook, Aurora, he started to play a little bit more. And so started to see, I think, just trying to make that defensive line younger so we can have a little longer sustainability. And worst case scenario, we're already the worst defensive line in the league, so it can't get any lower at that point.
Yeah, no, for sure. So it can only go up from here for you guys. So moving on to the Denver Broncos. I'm going to go with the tight end here, but it's not the tight end that everyone keeps mocking. I'm going to go with Tyler Warren. the tight end from Penn State. Everyone keeps giving them Colston Loveland. And while I like Colston Loveland, I go back to like the Jimmy Graham days where he was like a really big kind of inline guy for Sean Payton. And I know he wasn't much of a blocker specifically, but just kind of a freak athlete, really good after the catch. And to me, that's what Tyler Warren is. He's not the fastest guy in a straight line. He's just a big, surprisingly elusive runner with the football. And he's not even really like a great route runner. He just like gets into open space and then gets found by the quarterback, which I guess in some ways is more impressive than being like a really precise route runner, just constantly finding holes in the defense. So I really like that fit. I think he's going to be not just like he could be the Binky for Bo Nix, right? Like on 3rd and 6, he's going to run like a 7-yard curl route that doesn't look pretty, but it's right in the hole of a zone and it sits in it and then just gets the first down. And then he can go create after that as well.
Well, and he's just a big guy, and he's going to be a matchup nightmare because are you going to put a nickel on him? Because he's just going to bully him around. And a linebacker might not be quick enough to keep up with him. And he's got great hands. And so watching him play against Minnesota, that was a great game. But Tyler Warren was the entire offense for Penn State. He's the reason why they won that game. And then some help from Minnesota as well. So it's going to be fun seeing him in the Big Ten Championship go up against Oregon. It's going to be fun seeing him play in the college football playoffs.
Yeah, no, I really like him as a prospect. I think he'll have a good career in the NFL. Moving on now to the Seattle Seahawks. This is another one. So I know Geno Smith, we've gotten a lot of hate on this channel for our Geno Smith takes. I hate to say it, and I know at times this year he has been playing at a very high level. This offensive line has done him no favors. There is just, if you lined up all 32 quarterbacks in the NFL, Geno Smith is probably somewhere near 16. Maybe you give him like 3 or 4 spots ahead. Maybe you go 3 or 4 spots below. But he's somewhere in the middle. And I think they could go and take a big swing here at quarterback. Geno Smith, he is on an expiring contract. He is approaching his mid-30s. Go and get a Jalen Milroe. Let him sit for a few years if he does decide to come out. I think this could be a really good landing spot because you're going to put Jalen Milroe in a situation with 2 elite receivers in Jackson Smith-Njigba, DK Metcalf. Kenneth Walker is a really fantastic running back. This offensive line, when healthy, is okay. And this is a really good defense with Mike McDonald at the helm. And I think this could be a really good fit. Everything you hear about Jalen Milroe, he's a fantastic kid. Like, nobody ever has any character issues with him. He works so hard. And you just watch him play football, and you can just tell he has a feel for the game. He has a cannon for an arm. He's still learning how to control it. I think that's part of the reason why you draft him and sit him. And then he can come in, I think, in year 2 and be a starter for you, and then kind of see where his career goes from there. But I like that fit a lot. I know it's not filling an immediate need, but I think long term, this front office is going to want to kind of invest in a quarterback. And I think Jalen Milroe is a really good one to do that with. So this is I didn't have him go in the first round in my last mock draft. This is one where I have him go here. But I really like him. I just don't know if he's quite there with the X's and O's. But if he goes to a situation where he can sit, so like here, Los Angeles, those are really the only 2 that are popping off my head right now. But I think he could develop into a really solid starter later on in his career. So Washington up next. This is where I have Luther Burden coming off the board. So only the second wide receiver to go. And I like Luther Burden. I don't have he's just, to me, he's a high-end slot receiver with big play potential. Last year when I watched him, I saw Malik Neighbors. This year when I watch him, I don't quite see that same level of talent. I see more of like a Zay Flowers caliber talent, and this is where Zay Flowers got drafted in, like, I believe, the early 20s. And so I think Luther Burden, he's a good receiver. You pair him with Terry McLaurin, who's more of that outside guy. He can win down the field. Luther Burden is going to be the guy over the middle of the field that is going to catch the ball and run with it, be your screen guy. I think that's a good fit there. And then next up here, we have the Houston Texans. And I know Joe Mixon is having a really good year, but there's a guy that I kind of just wanted to give a shout out to, and I feel like this would be a good fit, and that's Omarion Hampton. No skill position player, maybe Caleb Johnson you could put in this, who's right here, but no skill position player in my eyes has boosted their draft stock as much as Omarion Hampton has. He was probably a late day 2 pick coming into this year, and Omarion Hampton has just totally blown things up at North Carolina. He's been fantastic, and he's going to be a bell cow back in the league for a lot of years. And I think Houston, I get Joe Mixon's having a good year, but if you can get a stud at that position, Joe Mixon is a really good alternative back. But I think Omarion Hampton could be top 5 running back in the league. This offensive line as well is, when healthy, a lot better than it's been performing. They've been banged up this year. And I think that would be really good for this offense here. Next up, Baltimore Ravens. Another guy that I really like, but I know they went corner in the first round last year, but I'm going to go Jahdae Barron, the corner from Texas. He was a slot corner and a safety. He's kicked out more to the outside this year and been really good. He had 2 interceptions against Georgia, and just been phenomenal. And I really like what he brings to the table. Very versatile guy that can kind of be moved around in a lot of matchups. So I think you have him. Nate Wiggins, I believe, is the other one that they drafted last year. Especially as Marlon Humphreys kind of gets older and moves on, I think this would be a really good fit to kind of come up and maybe try to fill those shoes here. So the Chargers, I know Jim Harbaugh would love to reunite with Colston Loveland. The tight end position, to me, I don't think the NFL values it nearly as much. I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka. Emeka Egbuka has 2/3 of his catches. So he has 60 receptions. Over 40 of them are for a first down. And to me, I think if you're Justin Herbert, I think you have Ladd McConkey, who is a surprisingly explosive receiver for the name Ladd McConkey. And he's been very good. Quentin Johnston, I think, has had a lot left to be desired, but he is kind of your down the field winner. I think Emeka Egbuka is like a really good option to kind of throw into that mix, where he's just going to be your consistent possession receiver in that lineup there. So I like Emeka Egbuka. I know the Michigan head coach drafted an Ohio State guy, but I think that's just going to be a nice fit there as well. And then next up, this is where the San Francisco 49ers trade down from, I believe, pick 14 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they have some issues. They could go with a receiver potentially. Like, I know Isaiah Bond is still on the board. Alec Eilmanner is still there. They could go that route. However, I look at this offensive line and I think they really need to kind of make a better, just improve. They drafted Dominic Puni last year. He's playing right guard. I'm going to go with a guy that I recently discovered, but I just want to also give a little shout out. Gray Zabel. He reminds me a little bit of, I believe it's Mike McGlinchey. He was the right tackle there for a little while, just like a tall, skinnier tackle that's real athletic. And I think for that outside zone running scheme, going to be a really nice fit for Kyle Shanahan in that offense. I don't know if he's necessarily a day one starter, because I think he needs to add on about another 5 to 10 pounds just to be physical enough at this level. But North Dakota State has pumped out a ton of great offensive linemen, like a little bit of a bloodline there for those guys. And I just think that this is a really good fit because he is very athletic. He can really get out into space and get out in front of those running backs. So, and be a really good run blocker. It may need some work in pass protection, but with how quickly Brock Purdy gets the ball out of his hands, it's not usually an issue. I say that Brock Purdy is also one of the best scrambling quarterbacks in the league. Him and Josh Allen have, I believe, the 2 most scramble yard, like the most first and second most scramble yards in the league. So 49ers fans can correct me if I'm wrong. Lamar Jackson is also in there, but he has more like designed runs as well. Here, Green Bay Packers, another guy I really like that I feel like is kind of being slept on. He's just had a really down year, but you're just going to draft him for his physical traits. Deion Walker, the defensive interior guy from Kentucky, had a really good 2023, not so much in 2024, but just reminds me of Jordan Davis, just at his size, like 6'6", 350, can move pretty well, has some actual pass rush upside. And the thing that is like amazing to me, and I said this in the last one as well, in the last mock draft, he has like snaps at like wide 9, like on some where he's like going up against tackles at like 360 pounds. And like, are they effective? No. Is it fun to watch? Yeah. Like it's kind of fun to watch him try to do a speed rush around a tackle at that weight. And he can do it at a reasonable level. But I think you throw him in more of like a traditional nose tackle, defensive tackle role, where he can really beat up on some guards and centers all game. And I think he'll find a lot more success in that type of role. And he has pass rush upside. He is a 3-down defensive tackle. And I just like him. He needs a lot of refinement in his game, but all in all, I think he's a good player. Minnesota Vikings, gonna go on the offensive interior here. At this point, there's not a whole lot of guys. Like, they could go Colston Loveland, but they have TJ Hawkinson. Again, Cameron Williams, Benjamin Morrison, I'm not taking in this draft. They don't need receivers. I like Michael Williams. I just don't necessarily think he quite fits that scheme. Shamar Stewart would more. But I think they're going to be in the running back market. I think they want to go and just, with Christian Darrisaw coming back, I want to say have a more powerful running game, especially J.J. McCarthy. He lined up a lot under center at Michigan. They want to get that play action game going with Kevin O'Connell. So I'm going to go with Donovan Jackson. You're going to look at his numbers. You're going to be like, why the hell would you draft this guy in the first round? Well, starting at about this Penn State game, he has been playing left tackle for them, totally out of position. And just the fact that he's actually even doing that at not a great level, but a starting level after playing guard his whole life, I think it is pretty impressive and pretty indicative of just his athleticism as a whole. So Donovan Jackson, I think, is a really good fit here. He's going to be a powerful, athletic guard that they can just kind of throw into this rotation here on this offensive line. Here with the Philadelphia Eagles, another guy that I really like. He's had good games in spurts. He had a really good game against Georgia, who had some bigger, slower offensive tackles. I'm going to go with Princely Umanmielen, the edge rusher from Ole Miss. Perfect build for an edge rusher, just a little inconsistent at times, but I think getting him next to these Georgia guys, I think it's really going to help out his game. He's a good run defender. He's a good pass rusher. I really like what he brings to the table, so we're going to go Princely Umanmielen here. And also, I do want to touch base really quick. There are a few teams like the Minnesota Vikings at this point that I could trade out with for teams in the second round that maybe they want to acquire a little bit more draft capital going into day 2. However, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to touch base on each team before maybe doing that in a later mock, having teams trading up out of the second. So there are going to be no more trades, but I could see a team like the Vikings. The Philadelphia Eagles are not one of those teams because they have a crap ton of draft capital this year. But yeah, so Buffalo Bills next up. I feel like Michael Williams is their kind of guy. He's just like the big athletic freak, like the AJ Epinesa, but on steroids. Not actually, because he would be suspended for that, but just a really big, freaky edge rusher who has all the tools to be successful. But Sean McDermott is going to get his hands on him, and he might have a Greg Rousseau type rise, I think, where he could be he could be a lot better than Greg Rousseau. He has the tools to be a top 5, top 10 edge rusher in the NFL. But he himself just needs a lot of refinement. He needs to also stay healthy, which is another reason why I have him falling this far. But he's just a good football player, just needs some NFL coaching and refinement, and he has all the tools to be a fantastic player. Next up, I hate doing this, but the fact that I hate it makes me feel like it's a good pick. I'm going to send Colston Loveland here to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it's pretty clear Travis Kelce has lost a step. This offense needs I don't want to say a dynamic playmaker, because they have Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice, when he was on the field, was a dynamic playmaker. But I think they need a more consistent over-the-field threat, and I think Colston Loveland is exactly that. And they could go tackle, but at this point, again, I'm not drafting Cameron Williams or Ben Morrison in this mock draft because I think they should go back to school. Once when they declare, or if they declare, then I'll start including them. But until then, I think they go back to school. Lastly, Detroit Lions. I'm going to go with another interior guy, a guy that I really liked from Alabama. Tyler Booker is just a force to be reckoned with, especially in the running game. When he gets his hands on guys and starts driving his legs, it looks like he's just pushing a sled around the field. And I really like what he brings to the table. He needs a little bit of work in pass pro, but again, just a really big, strong guard that I think is going to be a solid guard at the next level. That the Lions, obviously, they like to run the ball, but for the future, especially without Ben Johnson, I think it's going to be really important to continue to invest in that offensive line as well. So going to go with Tyler Booker here. And that concludes my second mock draft. Went a little bit longer than I had originally thought, but, we got there.
Well, no, I thought it was great content. I thought obviously it's I'm part owner of the show, so I had to say that. But no, I thought you did a great job, kind of going in depth into why you went with each pick there. I think starting off, like, we already did the first 16, so like looking at the recapping the second 16, 17 at the Rams offensive line, I could see why they could go on the offensive line, but I think they actually have a decent offensive line. They've just been
Alaric Jackson is a free agent this year,
and that's fair, and that's a good point too. So I can see them going that route. Potentially see them going corner as well. Siobhan Ravel out of ECU, I think, would be an interesting guy there. So a lot of interesting routes to go. But to me, I could see it being offensive line, or I could see it being secondary. This pick here, I like Kenneth Grant going to Arizona. It's the same thing as well as Cincinnati. Like, they just need defensive help and getting more help on the defensive line. Atlanta, my Falcons, they'll probably go edge rusher, but also too, knowing Terry Fontenot, and then also knowing kind of the how they've drafted, they could go quarterback here. No, I'm just joking. But I actually wouldn't hate if they got Luther Burden here, because I think one thing the Falcons are missing are dynamic playmakers as receivers. We have Bijan in the backfield, and he's extremely dynamic and explosive. But I think if you go get a receiver here, that also could be another interesting one to go with. I like Tyler Warren there. Jalen Milroe, your point makes sense. My only thing is something similar earlier is I think Seattle can maybe address those needs that you were talking about. There's a lot of good defensive line guys here. Like, go get Deion Walker, go get a Darren Harmon, as well. Address that defensive line. And then you could go take a quarterback in the second round, or trade up in the second round to go get Jalen Milroe. Because I have a feeling teams are going to wait on him, or Carson Beck, or Quinn Ewers, or some of the other guys that are rolling out. Drew Aller as well, a guy to go and develop, like from post Geno Smith. But that's neither here nor there. I like the next several picks after that. Emeka Egbuka, I'm going back and forth on how I feel about Emeka Egbuka, because he's had a phenomenal career at Ohio State. But he has always been the second guy.
And I don't think he would be the number one guy in LA either. That is part of the reason why I went that route. My biggest thing is he's a high-end possession receiver, and I feel like that's what they need right now.
Well, and so especially too with the Chargers, if you go look at what they're trying to develop, just give a lot of good options for Justin Herbert to throw to. My issue is where is he going to be drafted? And I think teams might value him as, he's going to be a number 2 receiver. Well, do you really want to get a number 2 receiver in the first round, or wait until the second round? Maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm very curious on where he ends up, because he's had a phenomenal career. One of the best receivers to play at Ohio State, especially too if you look at it statistically. But like, there's a reason why Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, like, were more highly touted than them. Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. Then you have Jeremiah Smith. Now, he's taken a lot of attention because he's a freshman, to be fair. To Emeka Egbuka, who's also had a great season also. But so that's where I'm curious on where he falls here as well. If you want to scroll down a little bit more, San Francisco, if they're trading here, going offensive line makes sense. Like Deion Walker as well. But the Vikings, I could see them going running back as maybe Caleb Johnson. But all these other picks here, it makes sense. And that's what's going to be so fun about this draft come draft night, is like the past couple of years, felt like our draft boards, our final mock draft was pretty close to kind of what happened. It really, after the first couple picks, like all mock draft boards could just be blown up, because we have no idea what's going to happen here. There are guys here that I included on my mock draft that I think could be first round picks, just because maybe teams value them more. And so like the picks overall, I think it's going to be fun. Last point, I will say Detroit could see them going edge rusher as well. Get a Buckeye to go across from the Wolverine.
So that is the one thing. So like last year, this class or last year's class, it was like the sexy positions, right? And like not even that left tackle was like a sexy position, but it's like, all right, you had your corners, your wide receivers, your quarterbacks, your left tackles. There wasn't a ton of edge rushers, and there wasn't a ton of running backs. Interior was a little skeptical, and now I feel like it's the complete opposite. You have excuse my French, a shit ton of edge rushers in this class. Like there might be 20 to 25 edge rushers drafted in the top 100. Like it is crazy how many edge rushers there are. Like we didn't even get into Kyle Kennard. Mike Green was mentioned at one point. There's JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, the Ohio State guys. Like that's 4 more off the top of my head. And there's just so many in this class that, yes, I agree that maybe they could get an edge rusher at 32. They might be able to get a very similar caliber edge rusher at 64. And this was a decent interior class, I believe, as well. In like the later, like day 2, day 3 as spot as well. But that's why I also feel like Donovan Jackson and Tyler Booker, those are the 2 clear-cut guards in my eyes. Unless you include like the tackles at the top. But it's just it's a fun exercise to kind of go through and run, like rack your brain on the potential options that each team could take come April.
Yeah, no, this will probably be my line for the entire offseason, so you all should get used to it. But last year's draft was like where you draft your superstars. This year's draft is where you draft your Super Bowl winning team, because this is going to be a lot of the role players, a lot of the guys that like the defensive lineman that you're talking about, make it super hard to run against if it's defensive interior, or just get great pass rushers off the edge. This is where you can go and get some stud offensive linemen and some interior guards, guys that, tackles in college that could kick into guard, have them be more versatile as well. They're not going to have any stats, but they could just be like absolute like stalwarts at their position to help out with the running game. Seattle, for example, is the one that comes to my mind. If they could somehow get a pass rush, an offensive line, I don't think we've seen the full potential with Kenneth Walker yet. Like that's what's crazy about it. Because and you with all the weapons that they have there, if they got a good offensive line, that offense could almost be unstoppable. So that's where I think that's what this draft's going to be. So we're going to see a lot of great talent. Or see which GMs and see which scouting teams are going to rise to the occasion. And historically, teams like the Steelers have drafted really well, and Rams have drafted really well. My Falcons have not drafted really well, so we'll probably screw the pooch.
I don't want to hear it. The Patriots have over the last.
I don't want to hear it either. You have 6 Super Bowls in your lifetime, so no, I don't want to hear it. Yeah, I don't want to hear it either.
The Patriots are the worst drafting team in the last 10, 15 years.
And you guys still have 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah, because you find Tom Brady.
My team's so bad. I'm still catching strays from Chris Collinsworth when the Bills go up 28-3 in the snow globe game against the Niners. So yeah, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it at all. And so
all I'm saying, Patriots suck at drafting.
And you guys still won 6 Super Bowls. So you can have it.
Look, all right.
Yeah.
We're good in February, not April.
I agree with you, though. It's a fun exercise overall. I thought you did a great job. It's going to be neat to see just how each of our mock drafts develop over the year, especially to a Senior Bowl coming out, Shrine Bowl coming up. You got the combines and everything in March, and then just kind of a mad dash to the draft.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really fun offseason. I'm really excited for the bowl circuits. One of the bowl games, but then also the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, like the Hula Bowl, whatever. And I'm just excited to kind of see all of this draft process unfold, see if guys can really separate themselves, because this is a draft class where if you go to the combine and run a 4.35, no matter like at whatever, like a wide receiver spot, your draft stock is going to skyrocket just because there's not a whole lot of like world beaters in this class. And so I think it's going to be really fun to follow. That is going to,
I was going to say because typically I feel like there's a lot of junior or like young kids. I say young kids, they're all young kids to me. I'm almost 30, but like people that still have eligibility left that go into the class, that go into the draft. This year, how many seniors? I feel like there's going to be so many seniors, and that's where to be
Yeah.
like watching the
Well,
Shrine Bowl, watching the
this
Senior
is
Bowl.
this is I think the last class that has a COVID year.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay.
And so you got a lot of like 23, 24-year-olds.
And it makes sense why they didn't go in past draft classes, because they weren't good enough.
Yeah. And this is like, the reference that my mind makes is like when one team overspends 1 year in the salary cap, the next year they have to like kind of take a cut because they overspent last year. I feel like last year's draft class overspent, and now we have to take the salary cut in 2025 because
Pretty much.
it's just not all the good players went last year. And so let's go ahead. Let's wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe to be notified on all of our upcoming offseason content. While you're down there, go ahead and leave a comment on what you thought of this mock draft. Did you love the pick that your team made? Did you hate the pick that your team made? Let me know why. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.